We might be like, we're live. Awesome.
Is it going?
I hope so. I think so. I'm pretty sure it is. How you doing anyway?
I'm good.
It's all
yes. I'm good. I'm well.
So you recently spent 2 weeks on a Ascension meditation retreat.
I did.
Why'd you do that for? You're a woman of the world. You've got businesses and you're training for.
Yeah.
Why?
I don't know. No, it was like I was saying to you, I got asked that question when we first got there. Like, everybody, why are you here? And I don't know. But then somebody said to me, well, you do know. And I thought, well, I guess I do know. But I have no words to describe why. Other than I feel like it's a gift that, not a gift, but it's a never-ending unraveling of stuff. Like I've seen such, like, my whole life has changed since I learned to ascend, because I've always been like a puppet on strings to my mind, like fear, worry, stress, sadness, everything that comes with it. I've been dictated by that my whole life, and I've done so much. This is something I was thinking about, actually. Like I've done so much self-development stuff, but it's all from the surface level of the mind. Like it's all from like changing the way you think, or changing your perspective, or which has a place. And I think it's like almost like the stepping stone. But I think the longer that you operate in the mind, it doesn't quite matter so much the way you see things, how you think. When you're operating on the level of the mind, it's always going to be limited, because that voice that says you're doing great is the same voice that says you're doing bad. But your mind doesn't know the difference between the two. Whereas for me, Ascension has taken me beyond that. And like I was saying to somebody the other day, that I can't believe it actually exists. I'm waiting for the day that it's like, oh no, this doesn't work. This is So I guess why I went was because I know that like nothing for me has ever felt more important and like important.
Yeah.
And it feels to be something that, like, I remember when I first came to my first vehicles, my first Ascension course, and got asked, like, what's your highest desire? What is it that you want? And initially it was, to just be a better person and whatever. And then the more I realized it was actually peace. That's all I want, is peace. And that's kind of now unintentionally transferring into just truth. And like all these layers that I put on myself of I'm this, I'm that, I'm not that, I'm this, I like this, I don't like that. It's all just conditioning. And I think when you've had an experience that isn't you, and that there is more, there's a strong desire to go and seek that.
To do it more.
Yeah.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
So, when I was kayaking, and there was those moments of transcendence, to forget, not to work on the level of the mind, but go so far beyond it that it vanished. And I put myself in some very scary situations so I could do that. And I imagine that's why people do long distance running too. Is to the running away from, well, no, I don't know. I was going to say running away from their head, but
for some, maybe.
Yeah. Do you think it's anyway, the running towards transcendence, the running towards more?
Yeah. And probably running away from something, maybe.
So I was delighted to find something I could do in my living room rather than giving myself trauma on a massive scale.
But that's the exact same for me. And like physical activity has always been a vessel to do that. Of like, you can push yourself, you can experience pain, hardship, and you can overcome it. And then there's that transcendence of your mind and that feeling of just truthful goodness, and it feels so wholesome and good. But it's you're doing something to get that. And then when you get injured or whatever it is, and my other kind of weight of that was through work. It was like I really strongly identified with being the person that just works so hard, and like I work so many hours, and I work harder, and I'm just this machine that just works herself to death, and like
grinding and crushing it.
Took such pride in like, oh, I'm exhausted because I've worked 15 hours today. Like, well done me. You know, whereas it's so like genuinely just so freeing, and just that doesn't need to be a thing, you know, and that I have no desire to entertain that, because I just don't. It doesn't give me peace, you know.
Yeah. I was talking to someone, you know, this weekend, very talented, very funny, very passionate about living, but you know, she's a fighter, and she said that I've been brought up knowing that thinking that everything is good involves a fight, a struggle. I've got to push my way through everything, and you're telling me to let go. And I'm like, yes.
Yeah.
And it's so funny, isn't it, that just how we get into these modes of the struggle is good, and somehow we distrust ease or smoothness. And it was the exact same thing, but talking to her, and so anyway, she's like night and day since I first met her.
Awesome.
The boxing gloves are just lowering a little bit, and so are the shoulders, and she's having, because I think we just end up spinning around in circles, and we stop. We only enjoy when we're knackered or fighting, and anyway. So have you noticed what's the difference in your running since you came back?
That's a great question. Well, interestingly, my resting heart rate, which I found is really cool, I was trying not to get too excited about it, it went down from 53 to 42 in the space of like 6 days. And it's now like steady in the low 40s.
Wow.
Which is crazy. And like I did maybe 2 or 3 30-minute runs when I was there, and my heart rate was so low, and it was so easy. And I'm sure probably because my body was in such a rested state. But it's funny because on one of the days, I woke up and my foot was in like pieces, like not actual pieces, but it was in so much pain. But like it didn't feel like real pain, but it really hurt. I can't describe it. And for like 6 hours, and bear in mind I'd done nothing but sit all day for a week, and my foot had been fine. The pain was there. And I think it was just that reoccurrence of an old injury. But it was fun because to watch the dance of my mind. And anyway, but running wise, I don't know how it's been. I think I, despite having pretty much, including injury, maybe 5 weeks off, I'm fitter than I was before.
Right. Yeah.
Like way fitter.
Yeah.
Which is so confusing.
Yeah.
Like it feels easier. I'm faster. My heart rate's lower. Everything is better.
That's awesome.
From resting.
I knew I so knew something like Ascension was good for recovery, but I only had my own heart rate and blood pressure to go on, you know.
Massively. And my heart rate variability, which is like the variance in each beat of your heart, and it measures like the state of your nervous system. That went from like an average of 100 to like 150.
Wow.
Which is higher is better.
Yeah.
And that's like crazy.
In 6 days.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Which it's cool to have that, because even though I don't need any convincing, it's cool that there's like actual, you know,
some stats.
Yeah. Stats are cool.
So interesting. I tell people this all the time, and they just don't get it.
Well, I was reflecting actually, because I remember I think it was last April when I came to learn to ascend. I remember I think I asked you if, can I miss Saturday morning? Because I need to run. You know, I've got big things I need to do. And I think you said something like, absolutely, but also this might really help you running. And I remember thinking like, he doesn't know how much I have to do, and in that phase and stage of existence, I I could appreciate like a rest day of like, obviously if you keep doing stuff, you're going to break. But I couldn't appreciate genuine deep rest and healing from something like a meditation or ascending or whatever it is, that transfers into everything. And yeah, it's cool to see the feedback from that it's even cooler that it's like it, because initially one of my big reasons to start ascending was for recovery, and it's a fantastic now because that's definitely not the reason, it's for just existence and life.
Yeah,
but it's a cool little addition,
little side effect.
Yeah.
Because I know we talked about this, but so many runners say, well, running is my meditation. And I'm like, yeah, but it could be so much better if you had running and
Yeah, absolutely.
But, you can lead a horse to water and all that.
What does that mean?
Well, you can take them there, but you can't push their head in.
Oh, I see.
Make them drink.
Oh, right. Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah. Cool.
The cool thing as well was so there's no caffeine on the 2 weeks, and I've been somebody who like religiously every morning, so probably the last 5 or 6 years, I have coffee, and it's like I'm the kind of person that needs to have a coffee, and that's what I've always told myself.
Me too.
And no caffeine for 2 weeks, no coffee, and I've not had any since I've been back.
Oh wow!
And I have no desire to have it.
Really?
Yeah, literally none.
I should go on one of these meditations.
You should.
It was these guys who got me drinking coffee.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Because I was a bit too straight edge, no alcohol, no caffeine, no sugar, nothing fun. And they were like, "Come on, lighten up." And I realized it was just this rigid discipline thing, rather than.
Yeah.
And then I had a cup of well, it was like incredibly sweet mocha, chocolatey coffee. But it was almost like everyone had turned my color senses in my eyes up to 22 or something.
Oh wow.
Everything was bright and buzzing and colorful, and yeah, I was like, oh, I see why people drink coffee.
I never get that.
It was only the first few times.
Oh, I see. Or maybe if I have some now. Oh,
it's like heroin, it's like, this is amazing. Give me more.
Then you have more, it doesn't do it.
I'm guessing about the heroin.
Yeah, assumptions.
Yeah, so I'll blame these shires for that.
Oh, that's interesting.
But it's the whole middle path, I think, with the Buddhist thing of not too hard, not too soft.
Yeah. But it's funny as well, because I can see kind of my mind getting fixated on, oh yeah, I just don't drink caffeine now. Like I'm not gonna drink coffee ever again. And it's like, no, if it so happens that I'd like to have coffee, I'll have a coffee. But it's fun to just, while it's not wanted, to experience that I can live normally and I can wake up feeling fine without, necking a coffee. So
everything in moderation, including moderation.
Moderation in moderation.
Yeah.
That sounds like thinking about thinking.
Yeah, I know.
Well, that's one of the one of the biggest things I think I became aware of was thinking. And like I feel like I've always been really aware. I feel like since a pretty young age, like I feel like I always used to think I've been too aware. Like I wish I was just a bit less aware of things, and especially since Learn to Ascend, I've become really aware of following that, train of thinking that's taking me down a void or whatever. And after a period of time, I became aware when I was following the train of thinking that was taking me off in the future that was not now. But kind of quite like extreme modes of thinking where it becomes obvious when you're thinking, because it's like there's feelings in your body. It's either worry, dread, sadness, or excitement, or it's like, oh, I'm not here because, what I wasn't aware of before I went away was just how much I think about mundane, everyday, non-stuff, like just like thinking about, like, I mean, there's no context, but just like I don't know, like the washing up or work or such small things that I'm not actually aware that I'm thinking, because it's causing no stress. Like, it's no stress to think about. Doesn't feel like it, but how it's taking me away from right now. And I've never. It felt like almost. I think it was maybe after a week. It felt like somebody had like turned the dial on my awareness and made it just go like this.
Uh-huh.
And it was like, I remember saying at the start, it felt like I was, before I went, it felt like I had no, everything was just good. Like, there was no problem, there was no, I think that's why I wasn't too sure I was there, because everyone seemed to go with some kind of problem, where
Right.
I just felt quite all right. And then when I got there and we did a lot of ascending and meetings and that kind of thing, I then felt like I was in a soup. It was like I was trying to find this thing that was called space and silence and peace, and but I can see so much thinking and thoughts, and I just felt like for like 5 days I was like, I'm just in this big soup. Like, I can't, and it felt quite intense. And then after a while, it felt like I was just a container for the soup. Like, I am just this thing where everything just happens, you know, and I can, and that my awareness of thinking and my awareness of feelings, thoughts, sensations just became like turned up massively, which initially felt really intense, because it was like, I can see everything. What do I do with it? Nothing.
Yeah.
You know, and just like the thinking thing, how much it doesn't feel like a problem until I became super aware that I'm not here, you know, like, and since coming home, it's become even more magnified, because I'm back in normal life now. Like, when I'm walking my dog in the morning, like, my mind's just thinking about the day, and then this thing at the weekend, and whereas normally I didn't actually think I was even aware I was doing it. It was just because it wasn't like, it wasn't negative and it wasn't positive and it wasn't stressful.
Yeah.
But then every time I'd noticed and I'd come back to here, I'm like where was I? But it's funny, because I never saw that as, I mean, I'm labeling it as a problem, but I never saw it as a thing. I just, I just thought that when I think about worrying things or take myself a bit off too much in the future, come back to now. But the other stuff, it doesn't really. So that's been a really cool discovery of just. It doesn't feel so cool, because I've realised how much I think. But it feels important to become aware of, because of how much I do it.
But it's super important, because you want transcendence, and that you can't do that and be chattering about stuff.
No.
All those moments of flow, of just where life gets turned up to 12, it's like you're not thinking about anything. You're engaged, you're immersed, you're fully here. And you're right, it's so uncomfortable, because you realize how little you are here. But then how precious it is when you do arrive, and it's like, oh, this is nice. Yeah, it's a good thing. You know, when I teach meditation or ascension, I always, people, not often, but sometimes come with wanting just to stick their head in the sand and ignore. And I'm like, no, this isn't sedation.
Yeah.
It's you become more aware of what you're doing, and that's actually a good thing. As you said, it's pretty uncomfortable, because we all have this image of ourselves going, well, I'm pretty good, and then you actually see what you're doing and listening to and talking to yourself about. And it's like, oh, my head isn't the great place I thought it was. Or, like you're saying, even if it's pretty neutral, it's just this mundane chatter that's filling up what could be a beautiful moment with rubbish, with noise, with unconsciousness. And what we're all looking for is consciousness, is awareness, is that crisp clarity. Yeah, it's a good thing. It's a good thing.
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and because it's like that crisp clarity, and that sentence you just said that was really good. Like, you can have that anytime. And I've heard that lots.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, of course you can. You know, you just be present, you be here. But on a Monday morning when I'm, you know, I've got a busy day of work, busy week ahead, and I'm walking my dog, it doesn't need to be this moment.
Yeah.
But it can be.
It can be.
And that's what's kind of turning in my head at the minute is like, and I think that the discomfort is like exactly what you said of I thought that I wasn't. I didn't realize how much I was thinking all the time, and when you become aware of it, you're not in that ignorance pit of just doing it without having any awareness of doing it. It's like you can see it whilst you're doing it, but just how I repeat myself, but just how little we're here.
Yeah.
Like actually here. And that's really blown me away because that's like, you know, and I'm really fortunate that I feel grateful that I'm only 21 because I can imagine if I was double my age, the amount of time on my feet of doing that would be a way more intense and longer to correct or to kind of choose for a different option.
Yeah.
But yeah, but just how little we're all here. Well, I say I, you know, but what a great thing to become aware of because I know that I don't want to be sleeping, you know, walking around. And I guess also, you know, the other main thing which I became super aware of was that all thinking is just the same. And there's a few days where I was getting lost in certain kind of like old patterns and insecurities and trauma and whatever, and giving it all of my power and attention, and like spoke to those teachers about it, and I was like, yeah, but it's just this thing, it's different, it's you know, special.
Yeah.
And realizing that it's just all the same.
Yeah.
But it doesn't appear the same when I give it all the meaning and the power and the labels, and that feels like a superpower and a one of the most important things I think I've become aware of, because like I said, I felt like I was like I'm pretty aware when I'm thinking about things that are going to cause harm.
Yeah.
But then things that are maybe a bit above that, or things that I felt like were controlling me, still existed and still exist. But just I guess to realize and also experience that it's really all just thinking, and now just almost to give no consideration or analysis to the meaning of the thinking, to the content of the thinking, but just that I'm thinking again. Come back to here.
Perfect.
And that's really cool, because I think one of my tendencies is definitely to figure things out, and I think since a young age I've always tried to figure it out, everything, you know, and what I didn't realize I was doing was with some things, like if I got myself into a bit of a stress or whatever, I would be figuring out why and how to get out of it rather than just coming back here. But I didn't realize I was doing that. And just that now I can see that I'm just figuring it out again. My mind's like, no, but this is an important thing to figure out, but it's like it's all just the same, and that feels great because that makes it so easy. You know, might feel uncomfortable, but it's simple. There's nothing I have to do or to pick apart, or it's just thinking, no, back here.
Which is what my ascension teacher who you met says to me all the time, just make it as simple as being awake or asleep. In terms of me, I would make it a process of getting better at being more awake. And there's something of that, but I think it's, for me now, it's really just seeing, like you said, it's either I'm really present or I'm not. You know? And that not could be anything from the shopping list to remembering some painful moment or something exciting in the future, but it's all the same. It's removing me from really physically, spiritually being totally immersed in this. And so I so appreciate his words, your words too, because they're such a reminder that we are all awake or asleep. And you can you can kind of occasionally wake up and go, oh, I'm here. But that intention or that priority to be, I just want to be as awake as I can, and then make it about, am I awake now? It just simplifies.
That's cool.
Because I always thought this was some sort of evolution of becoming better or something. It's a hard work.
Yeah.
We had this argument. We did an Ascension weekend. It wasn't an argument, but people going, no, we're rising above the clouds. No, we're dropping beneath them. And I'm like, guys, does it really matter?
Yeah.
What works? That works for you? That works for you? Good.
Yeah.
But I think it was Buddha who said, he was asked, what did you gain from your practice? And he said, nothing, but I've lost a great deal, many things. And I think that the critical thing where you lose all the sharp edges is right here, right now. That's the bath that makes them, right here they don't exist. And it's when we're lost in our head, that's when the reactions and the triggers and the stuff can hit us. So, yeah. But making about becoming better is so hard, rather than just being here and enjoying what this has to offer and taking the lead of the need of the moment.
It does feel like a paradox sometimes.
Oh, I know. It always, yeah.
Yeah, because it's like, because I guess in some ways it is an evolution in terms of like the more practice, the less momentum your mind has through doing it more. That was an awful sentence. The more time you do it, the less momentum your mind has, and the more it becomes, I guess, a habit to make being here now a priority. But in the same vein, like about that being such a trapdoor, of it being like yeah, I'm here now, but in 6 months' time, when I've done this and I've done a few more hours and I've done another course, and then but it's like, really, it's the whole thing is just all about being here, like right here, and that there's nowhere to get to.
Yeah. But
equally, there is a process, kind of, but it doesn't mean that. I mean, you can think about it, but.
I think I used to have a shopping list of, I know when I'll have made it, because I've got this long list of things that I won't do or will do, or I would have healed or made better. And I think that shopping list is probably non-existent now.
That's cool.
And I think that's what I feel like when saying you lose a great deal many things. I think you lose a great deal all of your expectations. And instead of trying to drive the taxi, you sit in the back and allow yourself to be taken. And to an old me, that would sound incredibly not quite irresponsible, but vague and wishy-washy and a bit woo-woo. It's like, no, come on, you driving, where's the G? You've got to make the turns. And there is a degree of that, but something about the surrender to the present moment makes everything crisp and clear, including your intention and what the next moves are somehow. Including the kind of person you want to be. It somehow just happens all for you, like having a bath and the mud and the dirt just floating away. But I don't think we take that whole striving and grinding and fighting approach to this, to life, to as we do one thing, we do everything. And so trying to battle my way through meditation and not finding it particularly enjoyable, because it's the one place I really can't do anything about. So awesome.
It's super cool that, because like the wishy-washy thing, it's what my mind's always reacted to in terms of like, the whole, like, I'm not the doer. I'm not the thing that's driving life, although I think that I am. It's like, well, come on, I am. I'm doing this. I'm doing all of this. But more and more, it's like I don't know, like I feel like it's just becoming a bit more clear that I'm not.
Yeah.
That, and actually there's that you mentioned it quite a lot, that analogy of it's the art of sailing versus
rowing.
Yeah. I think that's such a cool analogy because it's so true. Like, and something that occurred to me when I was away was like this phrase or feeling or whatever it is of like, it's all just happening. Like, I don't know what I mean by that, but like thoughts, feelings, sensations, the world, everything, it's all just happening. And I can either try and manage it all, or I can just step back because it's all just happening anyway. And like, they're great words and you can read them and be like, ooh, that's cool. That sounds like a cool concept. And I think it doesn't feel like a concept anymore. It feels like, I mean, my mind's making it a concept, but it kind of feels like how it is. And because there was many days where, my mind was super busy and there's that belief of, it should be still and quiet, and because I've come all this way and really just, doing what you need to do and releasing stress and all that. And just, I think one day just realizing that it's all just going to happen anyway. Like, my mind's going to do what it's going to do. And I can try and stop it, and I can try and fight it and kind of keep having this self-violence of I keep forgetting and it's so busy, or I can just like, you know what? I cannot be bothered to fight anymore. And that's kind of what it feels like with a lot of things, of just putting my hands in the air and taking that leap of faith of hoping that this universe thing, does its thing. But it does. And
it does.
And I think what someone said, actually, I don't know if this is a quote, but I'm going to say it. It was like, if I say I can't see the magic, can somebody take their hands off my eyes?
Huh.
Something like that. And I think that's so cool, because only when you're here can you see that it's all working perfectly. But the mind doesn't get that, and it doesn't agree with that. Yeah. But it's cool to see that that's not me. That judgment about that isn't me. Whatever me is. Yeah, that was cool.
Awesome. I love that quote, the art of sailing versus the art of rowing. Because you still got to get in your sailing boat. You hoist up the sails, but it's effortless, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Rather than putting your back into it against the current.
Yeah.
So, what next then?
Well, what next? I don't know. But there was one thing actually that I wanted to discuss, which was fear of flying.
Yeah.
So I've always hated being on a plane, obviously, because my brain thinks everything is a catastrophe waiting to happen. And anyway, so we got to the airport, and like for like the couple of weeks leading up, there was just like increasing energy in my body about this going on an airplane. So I realized, well, it's not. It wasn't actually, and isn't. It's not a mental fear. It's just like a bodily panic, which became cool because, like, anyway, so we got on the plane at 7 a.m. and we didn't take off till 11:30 because they closed the whole airport, which was fun. But it almost felt like it was like there was just an amazing opportunity to just sit with it all. Like, I had to sit on the plane for 4.5 hours before we took off with this fear. I had nothing else to do. And I just put my headphones on, my eye mask on, and I just ascended the whole time. And sometimes, normally, like if I'm ever stressed, my Garmin doesn't, or watches, the heart rate never actually really goes up that much. It maybe goes up by like 5 BPM. But from like 7 a.m. till we landed in Barcelona at like 3 p.m, my heart rate was like 120 beats per minute.
Wow.
Sat down, ascending. So I was like, And I realized afterwards, so there's some kind of like physical response. But it was really cool actually, because although I felt quite uncomfortable because of all these sensations in my heart and the breathing and sweating, and it was like it felt like I just fully surrendered to it, and like I realized I have no control over it. Like I can't stop these feelings and sensations, and to just almost sit in for the ride. And although it felt really uncomfortable, it felt so freeing, because I think all my life I've fought against them sensations, and I've tried to stop them, change them, I've judged them, whereas to just let them happen, and to see that like they get really intense, and then to watch it just disappear. That's so cool. And I've done that a few times, but never with it that intense. Like when it's that intense, it's like I want to distract myself, or I want to get up, or I want to like tense. But to just sit in it, and to watch it, and to see all my mind's then going off on a tangent about, or imagining a scenario, it felt like it was probably one of my favorite moments of the whole trip actually.
Wow.
Was on the plane, because it felt like a real turning point in my brain. It felt like every bit of fear and panic in my whole body for my whole life diverged in that moment.
Oh wow. Squashed.
Yeah.
Like an hourglass.
Yeah.
Wow.
And yeah, my heart rate reflected that. I remember I had my hands on, I wore my dry robe and I had my big hood up, and I had my hands on the lap, and the dry robe's like a light blue, and it was literally like soaking wet from sweat from my hands.
Oh man.
But before we so like maybe 45 minutes before we came to land, like sky clear, because we were over Spain, and you could see, I think it's the Pyrenees, like the whole mountain range, and it was just this amazing, like it's probably my favorite moments of my whole life, because it was like, it felt like I just dissolved all of this fear, and then I looked down and I saw these mountains, and that like normally it'd be like, my brain would be like, 36,000 feet in the sky, look how high, but it was just this awe of just like, wow, like look at that, and these background sensations and panic, they weren't in my face, they had gradually just gone away, and further back, and then when we flew back, I had absolutely no panic.
Wow.
There was no body stuff, there was nothing, and I loved it. I didn't want to get off the plane.
Wow.
Which is like, I can't describe the I don't understand, but like, to me, what felt really important about it was not resisting it, and was kind of like all my life I've tried to fix it. I've tried to fix it. I thought there was something wrong with me, all them labels, and I've really just gone, no, shouldn't, can't, won't feel or experience, and I do anyway, and there's just a great clashing of heads of, I'm experiencing this thing, but I don't want to, I don't think I should, and then just constant stress. Whereas to just put my fist down, just let this energy that's going to happen anyway happen, was just utter freedom. Because it was like, I have no control, but in the best way, you know.
And then it goes.
Yeah. Wow.
It's almost like everybody's right. You know, when they say that when you feel stuff, it just goes.
Yeah.
Actually does.
Yeah.
So that's
so cool to hear.
That was really cool.
Because, you know, with my military guys, a lot of them turn up with trauma and they don't recognize it's trauma. And it's not just war zones, but just really awful upbringings or relationships or whatever. And I think maybe guys, but girls as well, but you'll tell me, but very good at denying, ignoring, compartmentalizing, but not really doing whatever they can to not just turn and face it, to bring it to the light. And I think it's so nice to hear, because same process with me and a couple of my fears, just like, oh, this is going to kill me. It's too much. It's too intense. And then that just kind of builds to a peak and then drops away, like you said. But just it's reassuring that it happened for at least somebody else. That's a good thing.
Yeah, because at the time you're like, is this good? Like, if I keep leading into this feeling, am I just going to explode?
Yeah. Yeah.
But then and I remember I think it was Alan Watts on this video I was watching a while ago. He said something about like kids love funny feelings.
Yeah.
Like they love spinning around.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when they feel dizzy, they love it because it feels so funny. Like
Yeah.
it's a funny feeling. When we go into adults, we hate funny feelings. Like feelings of anything that isn't like feeling confident and secure, we hate it because it feels funny. And that came to me because it was like really these sensations, like when my head goes a bit dizzy and light and all the rest. It's just a funny feeling that a kid might be like, wow, my head feels so funny. But as an adult, you're like, oh, this is horrible, I'm going to die, you know?
Yeah.
And again, that in its kind of the layer above that is that you're just either open to it or you're
denying it.
You're denying it, which is, it's so cool to see.
Yeah. I was just reflecting when I took my kids to the park for the first few months, just how sick I felt on the swings and the round, and I was like, no, I'm not. But now I'm getting used to it again. That's so cool.
Yeah.
Wow. Do you know, it's interesting because I talk to so many people and they get so wrapped up in their trauma as well that they don't realize they're in a story versus what you were doing was just stepping back from it and allowing it. I think that's a fine skill too, because just that there's something about being present and allowing what comes without getting lost in it and almost like looking for it sometimes, because you can people are healing and peeling back the layers of the onion, and there's so many layers of the onion. Well, it's infinite because what you focus on grows, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And that's the whole, that's to me why, you know, I could burst with gratefulness for Ascension, because it's that anchor point.
Yeah.
You know, it's now, you know, because it's so easy to get lost in the story and in the feelings and in because there's a kind of a line between, you know, feeling your feelings but getting lost in them, and also denying them, and it's a varied spectrum. And you know, and something again that became apparent to me on the retreat was like an old pattern of like insecurity and a story I've told myself about from when I was younger, and you know, not loved, craving love and affection and whatever, and that kind of, again, it felt like on one day on the retreat, it felt like it was just like, and it was just so my awareness, and I felt so socially uncomfortable and so just not myself. But there was something small in me which felt like this is a good thing, because it felt like it was all coming up, you know. But what I was doing was about them kind of special thoughts was I wasn't treating it as a just sensations and feelings and whatever, and come back to here it was but this thing has power, this thing, because it's got, you know, when I was 14 this happened, and then this and then this and this, and I kind of, that story thing, I didn't realize how much I kind of clung onto that story and how much I identified with them parts of myself and them experiences, but I also didn't realize that was keeping it, you know. Whereas after speaking to a few teachers and just sitting with it, really, the freedom in treating it with indifference and in not getting lost in the story and not getting lost in labeling it and you know, well, this is that, and I'm doing this because of that, and I always thought that was helpful. I don't think I did, but I think it felt good. It felt like I'm justifying my feelings, and almost like I feel like a bit of a victim, but in that moment it makes you feel a bit better. I'd never quite realised that, but after a few days, to kind of, when it felt like it was all just converging, to kind of just treat it with indifference, to play around with stop labelling it, and to really just, every time I noticed it was going off again, to just come back to here. And it was so cool, because I feel like that's kind of dissolved now, and that pattern has been around forever. And it's always come up. It's always, whereas it almost became a fun thing to play with, because it was like, this is coming up. I have a choice. Come back to here, and like, oh wow,
Yeah.
you know, it's not consuming me. So that was super cool, and I think what's the coolest thing about it to me is that the teaching of ascension and just being here now, it needs no like evidence or reasoning, and my mind always looked for that at the start, like, yeah, but does this work, and X,
Sure.
Y, and Z. But what I'm saying is, now I couldn't care about how, what, why, but I know from experience that it just keeps on the truth of just being here now, and how it just, everything else that's not needed just burns up. It's awesome. It's so good.
Liberating, huh?
It's freedom. It's true. And after the 2 weeks, you know, there's kind of just a sense in me that's, I feel, resilient's not the right word, but like I can handle anything, you know, in the sense of like, I feel like I'm just got a really solid anchor, and that I'm okay with stuff happening and with stuff coming up and with stuff that you'd normally, you know, because somebody, like my desire to learn to ascend, to meditate, wasn't to sit through uncomfortable thoughts and feelings, and, you know, it's to feel at peace.
Yeah.
But I think another big lesson for me has been that being in like a state of peace and feeling peace are two very different things.
Yeah.
And how easy it is to identify with your feelings and to want a certain feeling from doing something.
Yeah.
And again, it's just another expectation, which takes away from the reality of right now, which without the judgment of it is absolutely fine.
Yeah. Beautiful.
So
I think I said that over the weekend, the difference between finding peace from your mind, from your past, from what dodgy traumas and habits you have, versus finding peace with them.
That's cool.
You know, like you're describing the peace with the chaos, and knowing that you can handle anything because you have the tools, you have the anchor, you have the understanding to step back always. And, there's something. I think it was Courtney Dauwalter, like your favorite runner, and she's becoming fast mine. But listening to her podcast, and she talks about the pain cave and expecting it to come, not being scared of it, but like, yes, it's here. Well, also, you know, and almost like joyfully skipping into this place of horror. But finding peace with the fact that things hurt, rather than trying to deny it as long as possible. And I was just blown away by her attitude to that. But I guess I really, you know, often I talk about, I've really discovered a place free. I don't know how to say it's free, not free from fear, but free with fear. And it's almost, people go, well, don't you mean manage it? And I go, no, it's. I've been afraid of a great deal, many things, and I'm sure I will be, because I just standing in front of 100 people makes me more than a little nervous. But I know, even though my heart's racing, I can stay clear-headed in that. So find a degree of clarity, even with however you want to label it. And the story of Bruce Springsteen comes to mind. And he was once asked, do you still get anxious when you're singing in front of 100,000 people? And he goes, anxious? No, I get excited. and just remembering that. But one of the ways I try and, well, I was going to say sell people to this, but just say, look, it's not about managing stress or managing fear, but realizing you can be free with it.
It's so much easier.
Oh God, yeah. Because we're going to put ourselves in. Can I run 100 miles? I'm not sure. It makes me very nervous. But I know I can do one footstep, and I know I can manage the next footstep and the next one. And can I give a speech to 100? I don't know, but I know I can stay present. And it's. I feel like I'm not really describing it well, but
no, I think that makes sense.
Just when you realize that centeredness, this anchor you talk about, you realize you have nothing to prove and nothing to hide. Like you really don't. You feel free and liberated and excited, and you're not trying to be someone you're not. And people can take you or leave you. Really, I like it when people like me, but it's like, well, they're gonna judge me however.
Yeah.
But having that state of nothing to prove, nothing to hide means there's really nothing to be afraid of. And I'm just, by no means do I feel like I've discovered the extent of this, but I really feel like it's just opening up so much, so much. And part of that's the fear of that. And I feel like, again, this is largely gone, but all those little fears and traumas and doubts and feeling like I don't belong, and exactly what you describe about when I was on ascension retreats, just feeling like I was the only one, and just that hollowness, like, oh, no one likes me, and I'm a loser. It's just like, but being content in my own skin now means I don't need anybody, but I somehow, anyway, that hollowness is gone. And I think humans think that fear and stress and all these things are some sort of necessary part of being human, but I want to tell the world that it's not.
Absolutely. I think what you just said there about many things, but the freedom with fear, to me that's so important, because I remember when I was maybe like 13, 14, I printed off a quote that I found on Google. It was like, feel the fear and do it anyway. And I put it on my bedroom wall because I just always felt like I've been encapsulated by worry and fear. And I was just thinking, I'm going to read that every day. And obviously it did nothing. But something from reading that was sowed in my mind of, you don't have to get rid of it. And, and I think it's like, I feel like in the world we seek to change and we seek to fix things, and I think there's such liberation and power in not needing to manage your feelings, because for one, because you can't, because we kind of really can't do anything about them, they just happen. Although we think that we can, like, sure, we can influence them in some ways. Like, if you want to feel happy, you can do certain things that perhaps will make you feel a bit happier. But reality is, you can't do all that much. But I think we spend so long trying to manage them and control them, and like that in itself is exhausting, because it's a constant job and effort to manage how you're feeling, and to maybe not feel scared, or to not feel fearful, or to maybe try and feel happy, or to not feel sad, but there's just such freedom in just like, like, and like I said, and what you alluded to there was one of the big things that's becoming more and more aware to me is I am not my feelings, that I am not the things I feel, and that. And that to me just feels so important. Being somebody who, like you said, been very fearful my whole life, to not be that anymore, but more importantly, to not need to get rid of it. It's like, it's so easy, because it's like, and then like what you said about Courtney, like just skipping into the darkness. It's like, it kind of feels that way, because it's, and I remember actually you wrote about it in your book, I think maybe your second book, and it was, I highlighted the entire chapter because it was amazing. It was about and sentence of his people. It was about that we're afraid of intensity, And that clicks in my mind when I read it. I think it was last summer, because I've always been afraid of intensity. I've been afraid of intense feelings. Like it wasn't actually like the flying thing. There's no fear of dying. There's no fear of the plane crashing and or whatever the other things I'd be fearful of and worry about, or the fear of saying something to somebody thinking you're an idiot, or it's the feeling that you have to deal with that I was scared of, because I knew I couldn't handle it. And to me, that's freedom, is being okay with them feelings, because then that anchoredness of, like if, maybe I look stupid, I know that I'm not going to be stewing on it for 3 hours, which is actually the problem, because then, I don't know if that makes sense, but just that you don't need to get rid of feelings to, and it loops back to what we spoke about a few episodes ago, where like somebody thinks that in order to go to a gym they need to feel like they want to go and work out, or if you want to run you need to feel like there's a whole other level to life, I think, where you're not bound by them feelings, because they're just like that and up and down. I don't know, I'm rambling. But I just think it's
spot on.
I think it's really important, because I think in a world where we're told and we think that we are in control, it then perpetuates this idea and belief that we need to control ourselves and we need to control our feelings and rather than being okay with them being there but still making a choice. Like you can, and to me that's why I love ultra running, because it's like I feel like exhausted and I can't do this and X, Y, and Z, but there's awesome evidence when you do it that you can feel like that and you can detach from the feeling and you can keep doing something despite the feelings. And that was when I was on the plane, I remember thinking about actually like, this is really intense feelings and sensations, but it's kind of the same when I'm running. I've been running for 45 miles, but it's okay. And it's just that anchoredness, I think, that allows you to be okay with it.
Awesome. That's one thing one of the ladies said over the weekend. She said, what happens if I get these intense feelings at some inappropriate time when I can't manage them, when I have to do something? And I'm like, I just don't think it happens like that. I think you never are given anything then you can't handle. And who cares if you have a little meltdown in the corner of the shopping center? It's far less bad than being afraid that you're going to have a panic attack for all of your day. Being so scared of a what if rather than just dealing with the what if it occurs. I think that's what causes it. It's just that constant panic about panic. And
that's what resonated in when I read your book, because that's how I've always been fearful of feelings of panic. It's like, I'm so lost now. Like it's just a meta.
But you face them and you go, I can deal with this. My heart rate was 120, but it didn't explode. And my clothes got sweated through, but oh well. Maybe I had a few tears. Oh well. People start crying and they say, I'm so sorry. And you're like, no, don't be sorry. Musician that we know, Shukra Devi, she was ages ago saying that she's playing a particular piece of music and she just wanted to cry. And so she struggled to pull it in. And I'm like, no, why? If I was in the audience and hearing and watching a musician just dripping tears on her instrument, I'd be going, holy cow, this is...
I'd be crying.
This is passion and immersion. And I'm watching something beautiful here. But we try and manage the unmanageable, like you say, and it's just... it's time to stop. Time to give up.
And I think it takes to be around people who don't do that to realize that, like kids, who feel sad and cry and then it's over. There's no and that kind of
but there's always a reason for it. Sorry to interrupt.
No, you keep going.
Because when my kids just are irrationally little monkeys that exhausted or they're starving or they're sick, you know?
Yeah.
And instead of, why are you doing this? It's like, oh, okay, you just need to go to bed. Let's get you to bed as quick as we can.
Yeah.
And for adults, it's the same. We're exhausted. We're starving. We're out of kilter somewhere. We're just carrying too much in terms of our history, and we just need to take a break and let it go.
Yeah.
And we don't see that. It's like, no, I must button up and keep going. I've got responsibilities, and and you can do that for a long time, but 10 years down the track, or even shorter, and then you start to break down, you know. So, yeah. Sorry, I interrupted you.
But
But it's this combination, like you're saying with Ultrarunner, you learn that you can go on no matter what. You learn that you can just keep going no matter how much your body's screaming. And then there's the other side of the paradox, which is like you learn that it's okay to stop. In fact, it's necessary to stop. And sometimes you need to keep going, and sometimes you just need to stop. The most important thing you can do is take a complete break. And I think you just get easier with going with that flow.
And I think that's the best part about it, is that it is a flow, and it's not like you can't figure it out, you know. Like same in life, you can't like I think we, and not that it's not necessary, but I think we can sometimes be a bit too routinal and rigid and structured, and because we need some kind of structure for the world to exist, you know. But you know, like, it kind of brings us so out of tune with right now and what we need right now. Whereas like, it's like, oh, you know, on a Saturday I do this, and then on a Monday I go to work, and it's a bad example, but I think we can't figure out what we're going to need in a moment's time. And I think that's really cool, because it's like, then all we have to do is just be here. You know. And you know exactly what you need. But I think it's such a scary thing to trust, when for so long you've figured it out, you know, and you've managed and controlled. But I think on the other side of that, for me personally, on the other side of that kind of fear and scariness is freedom. Is, oh, this is scary. I'm not actually in control. Like, you know, I can't manage this. But then the freedom of,
oh
well, you know, there's nothing I can actually do.
But you manage by not managing. You know, you have more resources when you stop trying to control the uncontrollable, and you just bring yourself back to what you have, what you are, your anchor, as you say. Easy.
Do you think that like, so let's say it's like somebody listening to this who, I don't know, so listen to this. Do you think it's like all this stuff, like to sit with things, to be here now, to let go of control? Do you think that's possible without some kind of anchor to bring you back here?
No.
Yeah, because I don't. Because like I said, I've as I'm sure you have, I've done so much self-development, and all these words that I'm speaking, I feel like I've heard before, and I've listened to it, and I've listened to it, and then for the next hour I feel great, and I feel like I understand life, and then before I know it, I'm back into my normal way of living. And it's so freeing to not have that anymore. But yeah, I personally, from experience, I don't feel like without that anchor point, of which for me is ascension, that I'd have the ability to, because it's all through experience. It's not, you know, you don't go through life with a sentence in your head of feel the fear and do it anyway, and then you're just fine, you know.
You're right. Everything we've been saying is a commentary on the experience of living full of presence. You say?
Basically,
and we try and, like you did, I try and follow the breadcrumbs in reverse of like, okay, feel the fear and do, okay, just be here now, okay, and just accept, just allow. And it was almost like all these arrows I was pulling out of my quiver to fire at the particular problem or life. it was all, like you said in the beginning, all on the level of the mind.
Mm.
And like the ex-policeman, you know, he said he did all these years of therapy to get rid of this astounding trauma.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until he learned something like ascension that he found, dropped beneath the mind, that he found healing, true healing and freedom with that horrendous past experience.
Mm-hmm.
And therapy and talking and everything's great, but at some stage you got to get, part of it's telling our story, and then part of it's going beyond the story and really experiencing that the story is as intense as it is, may have a short-lived encroachment on the present moment, but the more you drop deep into the presence of the present moment, the less, like you said, your experience on the plane, the more that intensity just burns off and is gone.
Mm-hmm.
It's not something you manage. It's not something, you know, you may remember it like a 2D picture, but it's not something that's ever something that can remove you or fills your present moment.
Mm-hmm.
And anyone listening, they've got to find something to go beyond their head.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it's the simplest thing, and yet maybe the hardest thing for people to understand, that there's a whole world to us beyond our mind, beyond our feelings. Maybe this will be enough for someone to start searching that out. But you can ultra run for, you can go for just a 5K jog around the block and get a little bit of this.
Mm-hmm.
But you can learn to do this in a heartbeat.
Mm-hmm.
You can have it no matter what you're doing, in front of your kids kicking off, in front of 100 people doing a speech, you know, the stuff of life. You don't have to remove yourself for an extent, because that was what I do. I do an hour and a half yoga class, and then I've gone beyond the mind.
Yeah.
And then it just mug me again.
Mm-hmm.
And finding that freedom and that ability to choose to step back at any stage is like, it's got to be done.
Mm-hmm.
Meditation isn't a process. It ultimately is right now where you are.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a tool is so valuable for that. So yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's so true. And it's so, the really difficult thing about it is that the mind can't understand it.
No.
You know? And because I was reflecting a bit on like this truth thing. I feel like I'm kind of yearning for. I don't really have words for it, but
no.
Like before I learned to ascend, I remember it was when I started training for my first ultramarathon. And I remember I had no idea what I was doing. I signed up for it because I was in a really low spot in my life, and I thought this is a challenge. And I remember the kind of purpose was, if I'm going to run 50 miles, I need to learn how to be okay with being in my head for that long. And that kind of became like an incentive to, well, I've got this on this date. I need to figure out how to be comfortable in my head. Which is why I went on to the Ascension course.
Right. Good on you.
And it felt like it was like a tipping point in my life of like, I either need to sort this out now, or I'm just going to probably die, you know. And I remember training for it and going to like a mountain and running, and I'd never been to the mountain ever, and heights, all the rest. And I remember running and just getting this feeling of just like, I'm not my thoughts and I'm not my feelings, and there's a lot of fear and all of this, but I'm not, and I have no words for it. I just remember just this slight feeling I had that there was something more.
Yeah.
And I know, when I've heard people say that, I just know there's more. I've always been like, what do you mean? There's no, what does that mean? But it was a feeling of just, there's something else here that is here. And I'd explored so much before, like self-help stuff, therapy, all of that, and it just never did what I knew there was something. And from running, there was this experience of there's something that I'm experiencing here that must be a thing. And just what you said there about, you know, you can go off and you can do that, but then you come back to your life and it's the same. And I'd loved Saturdays. On Saturday mornings, I'd get up and I'd go for my long run, and it was almost like a glimpse into how life could be.
Yeah.
And it was awesome, and I loved it. And I was kind of willing and happy to accept that, well, maybe I just live for Saturdays because I can go and run. And I was okay with that, but there was just something that there was something else, you know.
I want Saturday every day.
Yeah. and then when I learned to ascend, it just all just, well, it's just become so big and spacious. But like what I'm trying to say is, I think from like the level of my mind and thinking, I could never have thought about me being here right now and the experiences I've had. I'm having the things I'm discovering. I'd never be able to understand it. I wouldn't think it was possible. There's just no part of my mind that would conceive it to be a thing.
Yeah.
But there was a slight feeling I had, which I knew I had to listen to. And yeah, I don't know what the point of that was, but just that, like, I couldn't feel more passionate and assured that to truly live life and to truly be here and transcend all of our problems, you need to go beyond the mind.
Yeah.
And you can spend so long, okay, I'll change jobs, I'll you can look at your life in like all these areas of things that are wrong and that happen. But that onion thing, there's you go on forever, but from the place where all that happens is here, is in your head. And if you see that for what it is, you're just going to be chasing your tail. And I'm saying that because that's what I've done.
Yeah, me too.
And it's just super freeing to know that that's not it, you know.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks for.
It's so, I don't know what the word is, but it's so exciting and rewarding to just, because I love sharing Ascension and what I've discovered and the commentary on what I've discovered, and it's so much fun to see someone just pick it up and run with it. Awesome. You too? Oh, of course. I'm not the only one.
Yeah.
But yeah. So thank you. Thank you for being awesome.
Well, thank you too.
Yeah. Well, till next time, huh?
Yeah. Till next time.
Thanks.
Thank you.